to all the fathers. There's no such thing as a mother without a father.
All right.
A mother can only be a mother if there has been a father.
Right.
So we all, it was God's beautiful design that we would all need each other. And we would have to have each other in order to carry out these different charges that we've been given. So I'm very grateful that father is a necessity.
All right.
You know, it's not a luxury, it's not an option, it's a necessity.
Got that right.
Unless there's a father, there is no mother. And if there's no father and no mother, there's no
child.
There's no mankind. You know, man doesn't exist without mother and father. And so I'm really grateful. Pastor stepped away, but I wanted to read this to him, and I'm going to read it to y'all, and y'all tell him what I said. And this card says, we pray together, we praise together, we sing and cry and testify together. We worship together, we grow together. Thank you for being a shepherd who leads his family to God. You guide everyone around you toward the truth. With your wise advice, your steadfast example, and your strong spirit-filled love. For everything you do, and I wrote Pastor/Dad, Happy Father's Day with much love. And it's signed by the church, and I was, when I was kind of running my travels this week, I kept saying, oh, I got to get Pastor Father's Day card. Got to get Pastor, and I kept like not doing it, and then this morning, I said, man, I'm not even going to find a good card. They're going to be all picked over. You know, they won't be good. And the first one I saw was one that said, we pray together.
Oh,
you know, it just goes to show, if you want to see if God has a sense of humor, just make some plans. You know, just make some plans for anything. And you get to see just how unimportant we get to see just how unimportant we can be and how mighty and powerful God really is. You know, today is Father's Day, and like I said, you know, there really are sometimes not a lot of words to describe the goodness and the beauty and the commitment of a father. You know, I remember growing up, my father, you know, people would tell on us. I think I've shared this story. People would tell, you know, me and my brother would do something, and my mother would get after us. But my father would say, well, how you know they did? Did you see them do that? And, you know, I grew up with that. I used to say this. I used to wet on myself when I was little. And my aunt would always say, go tell your daddy I'm going to whoop you for peeing on yourself. And so I would start crying, and I would say, Daddy, I'm going to tell you something. And he'd be, what? What's the matter? And Minnie said to tell you she going to whoop me. And he said, for what? And I said, because I peed on myself. Well, you gonna tell her you ain't gonna do it again. And I said, my daddy said to tell you I'm not gonna do it again. and I wouldn't get a whooping. You know, and so that sense of protection and that sense of safety and that sense of love I grew up with. You know, I know what it's like to have a father in my home. I know what it's like to have to trust that if something happened to me, there was a man who was going to come and protect me and who was going to come and look after me. And he had his issues. You know, we sometimes have issues. You know, just because we're believers don't mean our issues vanish. You know, just because we're believers doesn't mean that we walk without you know, without problems or without challenges. And so he had his issues. But somehow, you know, I guess because of the prayers of his mother and his grandmother, somehow he managed to, in spite of his issues, still teach me what a father truly is and how valuable a father is. And so, you know, I raised my children kind of, you know, I've been married a couple of times, well, 3 times. And so I, you know, had a husband, then I didn't have a husband. Then I had a husband, then I didn't have a husband. So So when I didn't have husbands, I was mother and father to my children. And when I didn't have a husband, and sometimes when I had a husband, I was mother and father to my children. And sometimes they were mother and father too. You know, sometimes I wasn't operating. You know, I talk a lot about my experience with drugs and alcohol and the plan that the enemy had that they would take my life. And while they did damage a nice little portion of it, they obviously didn't finish me off. I'm still here. And I share that freely because somebody struggling needs to know. Like, I would not know that you could be free from drugs and alcohol if I hadn't heard somebody testify to that fact. I wouldn't know that a single mother could raise children on her own if I hadn't heard a woman testify to that fact. I wouldn't know that a man could be a single father and raise even daughters with the S. I've known fathers who've raised daughters, who graduated high school and who've gone to college. Well, I wouldn't know that unless a man who'd raised some daughters testified that fact to me. So, you know, I'm really grateful today that in God's infinite wisdom, He set us up in a way that we would fall down and get up. And He blessed us with a leader of our flock. I'm going to do this again, Pastor, because you missed it. So it says, we pray together. We praise together. We sing and cry and testify together. We worship together. We grow together. Thank you for being a shepherd who leads his family to God. You guide everyone around you wherever you go, toward the truth. With your wise advice, your steadfast example, and your strong spirit-filled love. For everything you do, Pastor/Dad, happy Father's Day with much love. So many of us, this was the card that was meant for you. That's why. And look, you can see us praising. See how the church sings. So, you know, I'm really grateful today that many of us who are here, I know I speak for Cynthia, myself, Lady B, mothers, all the mothers, my auntie. Our fathers have been gone. Sister Tika, our fathers have been gone for a long time. So we've been without that very dependable, that steadfast, that honest, that caring spirit of love that only a male can give, the kind of love that only a male can give. We've been without that for a long time. But because God was kind enough He was so kind to us. He was kind enough to us to bring us here, and you have been kind enough to make us we feel whole and complete without our fathers because you're here. We feel whole and complete sometimes without our brothers because you're here. We feel whole and complete because of who you are, and we know that the way that our First Lady loves you and supports you, she makes it possible for you to be who you are. You would not be who you are if you hadn't had that kind of a helpmate by your side.